So, in this interesting review of Jaipur Dialogues panel discussion, we're going to get right inside the minds of India's nationalist media. We're breaking down a recent, really candid panel discussion to understand how they see their mission, their enemies, and their tactics, all straight from the horse's mouth. Let's dive in. And right off the bat, you get a sense of just how confident they are. When one panelist was asked who's winning India's media war, he didn't even blink. He put it like a cricket score, 11-0. Now this isn't just talk, it's a flat-out declaration of victory in what they see as a relentless battle for the country's soul. But, if it's a war, who exactly are the two sides? According to these panelists, the media landscape is a battlefield. It's a clash between two completely different ecosystems with totally different visions for India. So let's break down how they see their main rival. Their opponent has a name, the Lutyens media. That's their label for what they see as an out-of-touch legacy media elite. As one panelist kind of sneered, these are the journalists who love to brag about their White House access. The accusation here is that this group is just not connected to India's reality, that they're chasing global pats on the back instead of focusing on what's happening at home. This comparison really spells out how they see the world. On one side, they paint this picture of the Lutyens media, obsessed with foreign access, creating idols for people to worship, and pushing an agenda that's completely disconnected from the public. And on the other side, that's the nationalist media. They see themselves as the actual voice of the people, focused on local stuff, reflecting what people actually want, and setting the new national agenda. That's the conflict, plain and simple. Now you'd think a media group that feels like it's winning would be all about highlighting the government's successes, right? But here's when it gets a little different. They spend a massive amount of time and energy going after one specific person in the political opposition. Let's figure out why. And the panel was asked this exact question. It's a fair point. Why give so much airtime to Rahul Gandhi, a leader whose party has just a fraction of the seats in parliament? If you're supposedly winning 11-0, why are you giving your opponent the spotlight? Their answer, it reveals everything about their strategy. The whole thing boils down to a concept one panelist called Shatrubodh. It roughly translates to knowledge of the enemy. He argued that in life, it's actually more important to know who your enemies are than who your friends are. So for them, constantly focusing on the opposition isn't a bug, it's a feature. It's a strategic necessity to stay one step ahead. But the moderator pushed back with this absolutely brilliant pop culture analogy. He asked, by focusing so much on Rahul Gandhi, aren't you running the risk of turning him into Mogambo? The iconic villain from the movie Mr. India, who was so cool everybody secretly kind of cheered for him? Were they accidentally making their biggest rival a star? But the panelists were clear. For them, the risk is totally worth it. They don't see this constant spotlight as building him up. They see it as playing defense. It's their way to expose what they call his fake narratives and lies the second they appear. It's to remind voters of the danger they believe he poses. And, it's also about keeping their own side from getting lazy. Basically, they want to make sure none of his ideas ever get a foothold without a fight. Okay, so what's in their arsenal? Beyond just hammering the opposition, what are the actual tactics they use in this narrative war? And what do they count as their biggest wins? This is a perfect example of how they operate. One panelist walked through what he called Operation Sheesh Mahal. His channel ran a sting operation, exposing high levels of corruption in an opposition-ruled state. That's step one. But the real genius move was giving it a catchy name, Sheesh Mahal, the Palace of Mirrors. It was so memorable that other channels, even political opponents, started using it. And just like that, the name stuck, it defined the entire story, and it forced their target to play defense. Another weapon they bragged about is just pure speed. One panelist claimed that when the opposition puts out a story, their entire ecosystem can fact-check and completely debunk it in just 1 to 2 hours. The goal is to kill these narratives before they can even get started, leaving, as he put it, no room for falsehoods to spread. So, they are claiming they control the narrative, they're winning battles, they have massive public support, and yet there's this really strange paradox here. This whole ecosystem basically admits it gets zero mainstream awards or recognition. And this question was put to them point blank. If you're so effective and so in tune with the people, why do all the big international awards like the Magsaysay always go to journalists on the other side? Their answers were, well, they were a mix of just dismissing the whole idea and some pretty deep suspicion on the methodology of the awards itself. According to the panel, the entire award system is basically a trap. They argue the prizes aren't about quality journalism, they're about pushing a specific agenda. One panelist claimed you only get foreign awards if you show India in a bad light and not without some truth in it. Issues like blowing up beyond actual facts, like poverty, conflict. Another just dismissed a major award out of hand, saying it was started by a CIA agent. The bottom line for them is their real award comes from the public. They don't need or want these other trophies. But for all the confidence, there's this really undercurrent of fragility. The whole vibe of the discussion changed when the panelists had to think about a future where the political winds might not be blowing in their favor. So what happens to them if the ruling government loses an election? Is their power totally tied to the people in charge, or have they built something that can stand on its own? This one hypothetical question revealed a really fascinating split right there on the panel. On one side, you had the argument for resilience. One panelist insisted their ecosystem is huge, it's not small, and that this ideology they've awakened just can't be put back in the box. He even saw a silver lining. It would be a test to get rid of the people who just jumped on the bandwagon. But then another panelist sounded way more vulnerable. He argued that for the government to even change, their media ecosystem would have already lost its power. He was worried their lack of real unity would crack under pressure, calling it the first true test of their entire movement. And that disagreement really gets to the core of their entire worldview. For the nationalist media, this isn't just one campaign with a clear finish line. No, it's something much, much bigger. And it never ever ends. One panelist summed it up with this incredible farming analogy. He said, controlling the narrative is like weeding a field. If you don't do it every single day, the weeds will grow back. That says it all, doesn't it? There are no days off. You can never rest. It's a constant daily struggle. Which leaves us with one last question to chew on. In a media world that's so polarized, where one side believes they're in a perpetual war, can a battle for the narrative ever really be won? Or does it just become an endless war of attrition where the only goal is to keep on fighting day after day after day?